Hello, and welcome to Through the Veil, where we get together to share stories and remember the wisdom that belongs to us. I'm Melissa Kemrudin, and this week I'm talking with Leslie Ann. She's come on to share her experience with sacred birth and sacred grieving. About halfway through the episode, Leslie Ann shares the story of the loss of her infant daughter who had trisomy 18. If this is not the time for you to be hearing a story of loss, you can just pause the episode about halfway through. It'll be obvious when the story is about to commence. And I invite you to revisit the episode when the time is right for you. Leslie Ann is a former backroom birthworker, a deeply spiritually intuitive woman. She's an artist and an author, just to name a few of her gifts. In this episode, we chat birth, death, creating the sacred space, crystals, and more. Enjoy. Welcome, Leslie Ann. I'm so excited to hear what you have to share today.
I'm super excited as well. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. When you said you wanted to, you said you wanted to speak on the theme of sacred birthing, which I'm so excited to hear what you have to share. Where would you begin that story?
You know, it's funny, the term sacred birthing. I mean, it pretty much emerged. My first birth was gorgeous. It was in a hospital setting. But I felt like I was birthing from very much a defensive position. I was a home birther, in my heart, but adapted things to the hospital setting. And I realized there were a lot of key elements missing afterwards. And so this term sacred birthing, it's essentially partnering with spirit, allowing all of those influences to come flooding in, whether it's through intuition, dreams. And so it just became this, I want to say in the mid 90s, there were all kinds of exciting, I had read some powerhouse books. My birthing influences were very much influenced by Michel Audin, Frederick Le Boyer, Ina May Gaskin, Janine Parvati Baker. It's amazing, in the times before internet, that these incredible influencing, amazing birth workers would even cross my path back then. Actually, at one of my baby showers, I got this book called Mama Toto. I don't know if you've ever seen this book. It's probably out of print now, but it was a book that was put together by the Body Shop. And Mama Toto is Swahili for mother-child. And in it, it chronicled all of these amazing birthing rituals from all over the world. And I think, as someone that was, I want to say, I was a very good girl growing up. And, when you get pregnant and it's like, okay, I'll go see my family doctor and obstetrician, and you just go along that route. And then I thought, wait a second, like this is how North America does birth, but there's this whole wealth of sacred, like beautiful, I want to say like potent conversations with spirit, where other cultures, they don't have all of the, obviously like this intense, often destructive medical model, even though there are safeguards in place. It just opened me up to the idea of inviting, co-creating your birth experience with spirit. And I'll just add this funny little aside, because I remember printing up some business cards, because I was always talking to women. You're on the playground, you're always telling your birth stories, inspiring one another. And my daughter, who was, I'm trying to think, she was just becoming, starting to read, but she was presenting as a little dyslexic. And excuse me, on my business card, I had sacred birth.
Mm.
And she came up to me one day and she said, "Oh, mommy, no one is going to come to you, for help with your birth." She goes, "Who wants to come see someone who has scared birth on their business card?" And and I just thought, oh, like my little daughter, she's brilliant. Like our model of birth is it's
Yeah.
fear-based, right? It's all based on the what ifs or this horrible thing
Hmm.
uh, could happen. So yes, there's my
Hmm.
answer to what sacred
Yeah.
birthing is.
It's funny, we all
Yeah,
go for that, right? That scared birth model.
we sure do. It's
Like,
so easy to get looped in
yeah, and I
with
think it's so part of our culture. And it's like I didn't know for my first baby that there was another option. Like, I mean, if you're
yes,
like, do you want the scared birth or the sacred birth? I want to take the sacred birth. But
I
like
know.
all I knew is scared birth. Like, and I was like, yep, okay, better get all the people and go to the
Yeah.
place where they save you.
Mm. So
Mhm.
I just want to say that, a big part of so I had these amazing authors, which sort of launched my soul into a new way of birthing. And that's what really held me for my first vaginal birth in a hospital setting. Uh, but afterwards, I thought, oh, I want to give birth in a safe, warm, comfortable environment where
Mm.
someone's not always poking me, taking me out of my birthing reverie. And so when in the mid 90s, uh, I started interviewing some midwives, and I would, I had my set of questions. I'd interview them on the phone, and I'd say, "Hey, this is what I want. My first birth. I'm a healthy mom. Things, there were no complications. I'd kind of be like, hear me out. I would love it if you would just allow me in my birthing process, to open, to blossom. If I want to make lots of noise, if I want to, as it happened, I want to give birth in front of a fire. I want to go deep into my process. I want to be surrounded by crystals." Um,
Mhm.
and I said to them, I said, I'd love for you to just be in my kitchen drinking tea and playing
Mhm.
cards and just kind of leave me be. I don't really even want you to do any,
Mhm.
vaginal checks. Like I just, allow me to do. And I know now everyone's, I guess that's termed like a free birth. But I was just like, hey,
Yeah.
and I will tell you, I think there were two midwives, registered midwives, that I spoke to, and they were like, "Oh, no, no, no! We cannot allow that. We need to
Mhm.
be here in this,
We have to
at this
save
juncture,
you.
at this
Mhm.
exactly." And I hung up, and I just thought, "Oh my gosh! Like none of these women are in alignment with
Mhm.
my plan for a sacred birth." And then as I've written, I do a lot of birth writing.
Mhm.
Um, and there, who did I come across? There was this tiny little ad in, I believe it was Shared Vision, which was like this awesome little kind of new age
Mhm.
spiritual free magazine in Vancouver. And that is where I connected with Gloria LeMay.
Mhm.
And of course, she uh, she was, yeah, just so in alignment with my birth vision, uh, the deep listening skills. Uh, that's where, yeah, we connected on such a profound basis. And she was the first one that sort of said, "Oh, you are this beautiful sovereign being who wants to own your birth experience." And she has all the safety features put in place, but she knows that I hold the wisdom on how to birth my baby. And no one is going to deliver my child for me, right? So, so I just wanted to say that in the mid 90s, I had a spectacular birthing experience with her, and then began studying with her
Mhm.
through her, which is the wise woman way of birth. So, yeah, such a beautiful compliment. She's so inspired me. And of course, as you would agree, our biggest teachers are our children,
Oh, yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how sacred birthing came about for me.
Oh, I love that. So you got into birth work after your second baby then.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
became a bit of a passion of mine. One of the key, I'll talk about sort of the key elements for me in sacred birthing. It was something that sort of was birthed during that time uh, for my daughter Astra's birth. Was the concept of a birth cave and creating a birth cave. And even now, I work at a crystal shop here in Vancouver, and I get a lot of women coming in who are preparing for their births, whether it's in the hospital or the home. And and I'm always, trying to coach them on, uh, yes, a birth plan, but having, I almost want to say, creating like this birthing vortex to allow the magic to happen. It's kind of like with anything, you set the stage, you fire off those intentions, and you wait, for spirit to flood in and support you. So a big component is, what I call the birth cave, where you're creating a safe, warm, womb-like environment for yourself and, whoever your, I want to say, supporting cast are.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a place where you're undisturbed, the lights are low, it's filled with sacred elements. Think of all five senses, right? Like, how can you nurture
Hmm.
yourself? Whether it's, the food. For me, it was crystals, music, the fire. Uh, and and even prior to that, I always counsel women, start building a birth altar.
Hmm.
Some people have a tough, you know, they get triggered by the word altar, whether it's just like a little tabletop, but start assembling, images, things that inspire you, that, uh, yeah, are essentially helping you craft the birth,
Hmm.
the birth of your dreams. And I think women sell themselves short in that often. We want to dream big, but then physical reality sets in, or but I can't ask for that. That's too much. So it's uh, Gloria used to do this exercise with us, uh, which she would say, okay, it was like a prenatal exercise. Uh, I want you to sit down and pretend you're having tea with your best friend. And it's a couple days after the birth. And I want you to sit down and tell me how the birth was.
Hmm.
Like, just craft the most, even if it has fantastical elements in it, right? Like, tell me your perfect birth story. I think that that whole thing has its roots in NLP. I think
Hmm.
it's called future pacing, but it's
Hmm.
a brilliant thing. I do it in the form of writing a letter to myself,
Hmm.
6 months from now, saying, calling in all the elements, and oh, how you almost go over the top, how fantastic this was. It was orgasmic. It was, it was easy. It was whatever affirmations, whatever ideas you want to put in. Uh, but yeah, creating that space before the birth even happens,
Hmm.
I feel is key.
Yes. Yeah, I always think of like if you think of any other mammal, like where they would go to give birth,
Mm.
it would never be observed. It wouldn't be out in the open. It would be somewhere safe and quiet and dark and alone,
Oh my
probably.
God. So
Yeah.
I actually think my first because, you know, we're always like, how did we get to this place? I remember my first birth experience, and it was in, you know, Toronto in the 70s. Uh, we had this barbecue in the backyard, and my mom had a box, I remember, under the barbecue, and it was lined with a towel. And I think there was like a birth, or not a birth, a barbecue
Mm.
utensil in there or something. And one day we discovered there was a mama cat who had taken up residence in that box, and we watched her give
Mm.
birth. And now that I think about it, we probably should have given her her privacy. But it's a real thing. Uh, you know, like Michel Audin talks about the adrenaline versus oxytocin.
Mm.
You know that there's this battle, and whenever I think of, actually that's a big player when I think of birth, is that, you know, we all know what adrenaline is, right? That's fight or flight. That's us feeling watched,
Mhm.
cold. We're somehow, you know, we're on edge. We're not feeling safe, right? And your heart is racing. So that's, you know, I don't know about you, but like when I'm poked and prodded in the
Mhm.
birth experience, I remember my first birth. They wanted to put a fetal monitor on
Mm.
me. And I was just like, no, no. But they were just so persistent. And I remember that made me feel like a caged animal.
Mhm.
It so took me out of my birthing process. So, you know, that those sorts of things, a lot of those fear based things take you out of your birthing experience. And what really is needed, so I don't want to say the antithesis of the adrenaline, but oxytocin, the
Mhm.
love hormone, right? That's what we need to produce in our bodies. Uh, and, you know, again, I'll quote Gloria. I remember for years she'd always say, you know, to give birth, we need to access that really
Mhm.
ancient dinosaur part of our
Mhm.
brain, right? And when we have adrenaline flooding through our body, we can't we can't produce the oxytocin. So it is imperative, you know, to leave the woman alone and to have that
Yeah.
undisturbed, safe, warm, comforted uh, experience.
Yeah, it's an interesting to think piece to think about. I just like was thinking about this connection even so if you were birthing alone or you're birthing at home and people wonder like how would you like what if something happens? Like how would you know? And I feel from the birthing experiences I've had and the births I've witnessed is there's a knowing inside a woman. And if you can
100%.
like it's very hard to get there though when there's all the poking and prodding and the bright lights and
All
all
the
those
different
things.
players,
And
yeah.
it's a different feeling like that oxytocin feeling can feel like it's a lot. Like oxytocin
Mm,
flowing through your body. It can almost feel like it can burgeon on anxiety. It feels
right.
like to me, right?
Yeah.
But it's different if you sit with it. If you learn to sit with, am I scared right now because I need help? Or is it just a lot and I'm okay? Like, where is it
Mm,
coming from? Where is the frequency coming from? Is it like, for myself, I tried to practice in this last pregnancy where I had a birth with a free birth. And so I was planning, like, how am I going to know? How am I going to tap into my internal knowing? And there's a feeling of anxiety that's kind of like it's up high. It's like a higher vibration thing that's happening where and that's not my knowing. That's just
mm,
something I need to breathe through and let go. And my knowing when something I need help with something or something has gone wrong sits more for me, like it's a more grounded feeling and it's actually calm and it's a solid knowing of what needs to happen. And it's not even when something's gone wrong. It's like I know the position I need to be in right now. I didn't know a second ago, but now I know, and now I move my body there.
mm,
Um, and I am confident if something had happened in my birth where I needed some support from someone, it would come from that place as well. Yeah.
absolutely. That's beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that knowing comes in different forms for every woman. Uh, I will say that there is nothing more fierce than a birthing woman.
Mhm.
You know, we are, you know, these amazing, yeah, tigers, lioness mamas. And and of course, like we always have that piece where we are doing what's best, like just coming to the edge to protect our babies. Um, so I wanted to say, for me, one of the key components is, when you were talking about like that anxiety hovering, and it's so much like full sensory experience when you think of everything that rushes through your body. For me, there was that, it's always been dropping into the moment.
Mm.
Even when my mind starts swirling, what if, especially if you're a birth worker and you're giving birth, you've always got these different scenarios. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness, what if, this could happen, whatever. So I'm very aware. Those, I want to say those thought tendrils, I need to give them space and allow them to float. But to be truly anchored in the moment, I always found that for me, that was the key, one of the key components for a sacred birth, and staying grounded and also dialed in to any intuition. Like you had said, like you always knew what positions. Like that to me is one of the most. I just want to say it's it's just so yummy and juicy. The flow that women go through.
Mm-hmm.
I and it's funny, like when you are in that moment, knowing that you're never going to receive, I want to say, like a birth surge, a rush that you can't handle.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in that moment, and this is another one I used to love, tapping into, was knowing that all over the world there are
Mm-hmm.
sisters who are giving birth at the same time. That just, that was such a beautiful, embrace for me. Uh, but to, yeah, the listening. So I'll tell you, with my second birth, and we had built, there was the birth cave had been
Mm-hmm.
assembled. Uh, and to Gloria's credit, like there was nothing I could talk about that was off bounds,
Mm-hmm.
out of limits. For instance, uh, I had had a pretty brutal postpartum experience after my first birth. And I had read so much about eating your placenta. And so I said, to Gloria, I said, I would really love, when we, after the birth, postpartum, I would like you to, or whoever was there, to fry up my placenta. And uh, when I was having a bit of show in the morning, I'll just go through the birth story
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's
Tell
such a
me.
fun story.
Good.
I actually call this one, because I look, they all have such different
Mm-hmm.
sort of hues and colors. This was definitely my shamanic birth,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a 3-year-old, my son, and I was still nursing him at that time, and woke up to a little show, and nursed him in the morning, and it was fantastic because I felt everything
Mm-hmm.
rev up in my body. So I remember putting on a pot of brown rice, and I had some veggies, for the placenta ready. And for me, I can be a real pacer in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of the birthing process, right? And there's a moment where you're like, okay, I need to drop in and fully surrender. There's just this tipping point. So our living room had been transformed into the birth cave,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a fire on, lots of pillows. I remember, what were my snacks? I think I just wanted apples. Of course, lots of water, and my son. I had invited uh, one of my best friends to look after my 3-year-old Cato. I wanted him there for the birth, but I knew that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm such a hands-on, attached mom. I couldn't do what I needed
Mm-hmm.
to do with him around. So yeah, I had, candles, like all the comforts, aromatherapy. Uh, it was darkened. I had some music, and I don't really remember. There was Gloria, and there was my husband at that time, and I really, I'm one of those women. I like to be left alone. I don't like to be touched, but I like to know that there is uh, that the space is being grounded and protected. And it's funny, we laughed afterwards because it was almost like, we were in the birth cave. I was doing what I needed to do. And my husband, he was guarding the entrance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so one of the things I love, one of the tools I love to, transmute and transform uh, the all of the birthing sensations is my voice. I'm really big on toning and singing. I've actually sung through a couple of my births. It's just a lovely way to release some of the
Yeah.
energy. But yeah, during that shamanic birth, uh, I connected with, uh, at one point, I thought I was a bear.
Mm-hmm.
Take that what way you want. But I was, it's like my body. I was squatting, and I remember my, resting on my front
Mm-hmm.
paws. They felt like they became paws, and I was just filled with this fierce bear energy. And then, as I was very quiet, I could see in my mind's eye there was a woman on the other side who came forward to support me. And she actually, I call her Fire Woman because I
Mm-hmm.
saw all these flames behind her.
Mm-hmm.
And she held me right through till transition. I used crystals to help flow the energy. Uh, and, in the end, I was on all fours singing, believe
Mm-hmm.
it or not.
Wow.
Uh, had visions of myself on a mountaintop, and I thought I'll just go with it. And the old, open mouth, open cervix,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that connection. And funny thing that happened, my son and my husband and Gloria, they were all behind me. And I remember Astra's head came out. I was on all fours. And Derek was there, ready to catch his daughter. And it was all being filmed by my friend Jane. And Jane, she mistakenly backed up and caught her shirt tail on fire.
Oh my gosh.
And so there was Derek, and we all to this day we were like, how did he even do this? But Derek was there on, crouched down, ready to catch his baby. Suddenly, it's like he looked up. I mean, talk about being in the moment. He
Yeah.
looked up, kind of like danger somewhere. He looks over, he sees Jane on fire. He calmly gets up, walks around me, puts Jane's shirt tail fire out, comes back, and like here, like Astra's head is already presenting, kneels down and
Wow.
catches his daughter. I'm totally unaware of all of this, but it was, yeah, it
Wow.
was
How in the zone was he for his role? Hey? Like we talk about women having this transcendental experience, and I was a little bit talking with my husband about this yesterday, but like, did you have that experience? And he's like, yes. Like,
yeah,
I need to talk
you
to him
know,
more about it, but he was in there too. Like, as he's standing there, like you said, the protector at the doorway, like he's holding the space, and
totally.
that he was like, knew it, sensed it, took care of it, came back like,
And you see it in his face, like all eyes are on my perineum, like
yeah,
hello, this is what's going on. And for
yeah,
him to just kind of be like, oh, there's a disruption in the force.
yeah.
I actually, I had, so my third birth, uh, I had my first two with my then husband, and then we divorced, and I never anticipated having more kids, but I went on to have two more. And with uh, my daughter Paris, I always remember, like, again, talk about husbands or partners being in the zone. I was on all fours. No, sorry, I was on my side, and just out of the blue, I don't know why, but I just kept hearing, um, oh my goodness, what was it again? I'm ready to receive you, my Holy One,
Mm.
right? And I just kept saying that over and over again. I'm ready to receive you, my Holy One. I'm ready to receive you, my Holy One. And then I, and it's funny, my birth attendant, like we all laughed at this again. I had my arms like sort of outstretched, and the dad, he starts blowing on my fingertips.
Mm.
And I'll tell you, like, it's kind of weird. Like, we all talked about, like, what would possess him to blow on my fingertips. But I will tell you, it was exactly what I needed in that moment. It was like heaven. And, uh, and we were all just like, what was that? But again, he was dialed in and just working intuitively, step by step. So yeah, all kinds of wild things can come into play.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So cool.
So I don't know how we're doing on time, but I would love to talk about sacred grieving, if
Yeah.
that's all right.
Yes.
Yeah?
Please.
Okay. So, I had these amazing births, fantastic shamanic sacred birth. And yeah, I think we laughed at this term before, like as this sort of backroom birth worker. Like I'm always trying to spread my home birth propaganda to any mom that would listen. Um, I, where was I going with that? Yeah, sacred birth was such a huge part of my life, and studying with Gloria, and birth was magical, beautiful. I remember when the class with Gloria, when it came to grief. And I remember I skipped that class. I remember just thinking, oh, I don't know. I just don't, I want to avoid anything in the shadows. And with my third birth, I'll just say it right off, uh, a beautiful home birth. My daughter, she had a chromosome problem, and she was born with a condition called trisomy 18.
Yeah.
Tri meaning three, and so yeah, she had an extra chromosome in her 18th pair, and so she only lived for a couple of days. Uh, so her birthing experience was beautiful, highly intuitive. My in the months, the weeks, days leading up to it, spirit was in such deep communication with me. I had prophetic dreams. So it was so like all of the birth rituals that I so love, we incorporated all of those. And then suddenly, I'm on my bedroom floor. She comes, skyrocketing out of me. Like she was just this little, I don't even know, I think she was like maybe 4 pounds something. Her head was like the size of my fist. And here's this beautiful little being that comes out, and she looks very different from my other babies. I already knew she was different because, there wasn't a whole lot of uh, movement in my belly. I also knew from spirit, I had been given, but still, obviously as mamas, we're right there. And it was when we were, shifting the blankets around her that we noticed, oh, she has a little spinal opening. And so we went to the hospital, and it took them a little while to unravel the puzzle. They had to, they need to do some testing on the placenta. So yeah, she was diagnosed with trisomy 18, and as the hospital said to me, uh, she is, when we got the results, they said to me, she is incompatible with life.
Mhm.
And, and I knew that it could be hours, it could be days, it could be weeks. They didn't
Mhm.
know. But she was hooked up to all kinds
Mhm.
of tubes and whatnot. And so there was a point where, obviously, like we're just such fierce mama bears. And it's like, what is the best route for my daughter? How can I honor her? And they basically said, they would take her off this support. And I said to them, I said, I want to take her home. And they said, no, 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 you can't do that. And I said, no, it's like she was born into such
Mhm.
beauty and grace and reverence. I want her to leave this physical realm in those same, beautiful, reverent ways. And I'll tell you, it was such a wrestle. We stood there, they kept saying no, what if, like it went back and forth. And I remember it was in that moment that I thought, like, it's such a weird, I want to say insidious system where you think you
Mhm.
don't have rights, but you very much do.
Mhm.
And I said, no, we are taking her home. And so we brought her home. It was, I mean, so much red tape that you have to wade through. And I understand they want to make sure that I was well attended,
Mhm.
that, we're not going to freak out. Uh, but I think they were satisfied with the spiritual team and the attendance that I had. And so, yeah, I guess what I want to say is I learned how to grieve in the most sacred way.
Mhm.
And, with every moment, and of course, she told me what she needed, Spirit told me, you're gutted. You're just in 100% surrender mode. Uh, I learned that all of my little tricks and tips of sacred birthing, they're all applied to
Mhm.
grieving. So, we did a special altar. We, uh, oh my goodness, we did so many things. But when she, how do I want to say it? When she passed, I still, I still got to do all those things like baby's first bath.
Mhm.
We took tons of pictures. We just milked every moment. And, uh, and my kids got to uh, got to see her after. Well, they saw her in the hospital, but after she passed, they came to spend time with her. We had my room. I transformed into this. I built her a little nest almost.
Mhm.
And people would come and go. It was like, if we were living in Ireland back in the day, that's how
Mhm.
death was a family affair, right?
Yeah.
So it was, obviously it's, 20 some years in the past, uh, but it was so rich,
Mhm.
you know, so rich. And we went so slow, like people, even cleaning up my house, people wanted to be so quick and clearing away evidence. I guess they were thinking of
Yes.
me, they didn't want, but, for instance, there was a small blood stain on the carpet where she came out. You
Mhm.
better believe that I loved that stain on the
Mhm.
carpet. It was like, that's, you know, as moms, grieving moms, we need
Mhm.
physical, tangible,
Yes.
So, yeah, there are so many incredible opportunities to grieve and and honor that soul.
Mhm.
Uh, and I will say, with part of my spiritual journey, Paris is her name, and she's she's quite the little monkey. Like she has taken many opportunities, whether it's, me working behind the counter of a bookstore.
Mm.
I remember this was a couple months after she had passed, and there was this medium that was in the store, and he said, and it's so awkward, right? He said, I just have to tell you that there's this little girl who's standing beside you, and she really wants me to relay a message to
Mm.
you. And of course, I knew who it was, and he said, she wants you to know of, oh, I feel choked up,
Mm.
of how proud she is of all the work that you two did together, because it was this incredible sacred dance, this deep listening.
Mm.
And, at every moment, spirit was there, right? And whatever spirit looks like to you,
Mhm.
just the divine would rush in to hold me. Even like in the
Mm.
tiniest things. I remember we had we had built her a little coffin, and I got my two kids to come, and they like colored and made it,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, made it. We made it our own. And somewhere I had heard about lining a coffin or a casket with cedar branches. And I just thought, yes, like just
Mhm.
again, sometimes ideas can come out of nowhere. It's like we need cedar. And one of my friends, she was off doing errands for me, and she was tasked with bringing some cedar boughs, right? And funnily enough, she had gotten everything else, and she was on her way to my place, and then she had to stop her car because there was this big tree branch,
Mhm.
blocking the road.
Mhm.
And she was like, oh, okay, here I go. Got out of her car, lifted, hauled it to the side of the road, and as she's moving this cedar bough, she was just like, oh, cedar, you know that's
Mm.
how that's how spirit works.
Mm.
That's yeah, all the love and the magic that's there for us.
Yes, and can be part of the process um,
Mm-hmm.
for helping us to manage it. Like our culture has such a fear of both birth and death. Like
Yes.
when the veil is thin, when you're sitting at the portal of one of those things, and like we try, and a big fear of suffering, of perceived suffering, and ways we can mitigate that. And it's like medicate it, like numb it, don't feel it,
Mm,
right? And and
mm.
even when you see it in someone else, like I want to fix it, I want to
Of
stop
course
it,
we
I
do.
want to, um, where as like there's quite a gift, like there's a sacredness in suffering that we
Mm-hmm.
can tap into. And I think that actually, oh, I know it does. It makes the event have meaning and be profound and allows you to take something away from it other than just the pain of it. Because if you numb
Mm-hmm.
it, if you numb all those things, all you're left with is the loss and the
That's it.
pain or the trauma of birth, like birth being painful and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and there's a gift in there.
100%. I
Hmm.
went through a lot of Bach rescue remedy during that
Hmm.
time.
Yeah,
That helped my emotional
flower
body quite a
essence.
bit.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. I remember even, like, I mean, there's so many amazing folk remedies. I remember just that bittersweet moment when your milk is coming in,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And I took cabbage leaves
Hmm.
and lined my bra with
Hmm.
cabbage leaves. And that was just, yeah, yeah, every step of the way, we are looked after.
Hmm. Yeah. If you're able to make the space for it, it's always there.
That's it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's interesting you brought up the medication. I needed to feel it.
Hmm.
I needed to dive in to that grief. And
Yeah.
and obviously it overtakes you at times, but you're always safe.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's that nucleus of safety.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Melissa, can I read you? Like I said, I do a lot of like
Hmm.
writing and sometimes some channeling, in my journals. And I just wanted to read this birth blessing. I think I wrote it, I don't know, like maybe 20 years ago kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I love
But
that.
it just wanted to be heard.
Okay.
Okay. Wherever you are, whatever you do, you, the glorious mother, have the mysteries of the universe within your womb. Silent whispers of intuition nudge and counsel you into deep birth contemplation. These are simple insights of the highest order. A woman's right to a natural, uninterrupted, and holy birthing experience transcend all negative stereotypes. You were born to give birth in this holy fashion. It is part of your divine right birthing plan. Be with the blessed angels who are forthright in their love and devotion. Abide by all holy and love filled endeavors. Peace, tranquility, trust, and divine perfect love are all for you. Be with the angels and loved ones. Open up the channels of trust and inner guidance, for you do not rationally possess the keys to unlocking these deep mysteries of creation. Only the Holy Mother allows the great plan. You are so beautiful and beloved. Allow these cherished words to imprint your blossoming soul and allow your Holy One to emerge in peace, love, and perfection.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
That's lovely. Oh,
Mm,
this has been a really lovely conversation.
I've had such a good time. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Tell me, like, maybe as a last thing, or like maybe you have some last words you have, but
Mm.
when people come in to talk to you in your crystal shop, what kind of do you have some like go-to crystals for pregnancy, birth,
Absolutely.
mothering, even grief? Yeah, what are
Yeah.
your favorites?
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you brought up the grief piece.
Hmm.
So well, first thing I thought of was black tourmaline is
Mm.
such a lovely grounding protective stone. So you definitely want to anchor your sacred space, right? Because with all of your intentions, the affirmations, everything, you've put into your dream, you want to anchor that vision.
Mm.
So I would definitely say black tourmaline. But for you, the birthing mother, and obviously for your baby who's also co creating this
Mm.
experience, rose quartz,
Mm.
a go to, right? Like lovely heart, compassion, peace, and tranquility. Uh, Blue calcite, for some reason, is coming to mind as well.
Mm.
It can be wonderful. Again, a very calming, meditative force.
Mm.
I'm also hearing it's kind of got, well, with the blue, it's sort of got that watery, lovely, yeah, chill
Yeah.
flow to it. Rainbow moonstone. I know that's a stone of new beginnings.
Mm.
And it's very much, well, it's connected to the moon, right? It's connected to our cycles. Uh, it's one of the number one stones I would recommend for a woman. But also, energetically, it really connects with this different spirit bodies.
Mm.
And there's also an element of, I want to say, protection, um, but also, incredible for intuition and
Mm.
opening up those channels. For grief or any type of anxiety, I love lepidolite. It's a
Mm.
type of purple mica. We lovingly joke that it's like nature's perfect antidepressant. It's very high in lithium. So you can get like the raw, it's sort of like multi-layered, you know how like mica flakes off. So
Yeah.
you can get like little raw pieces, or you can get lovely polished ones.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say that the lepidolite has not just for quelling anxiety, but it really helps with grief. It
Mm.
holds you when you're going through. Oh, that's funny because I was talking about grief, but we often say lepidolite holds you during times of transition.
Mm.
And, you know, transition obviously is a pretty key birthing
Yeah.
phase. So, yeah, it kind of chills you out.
Mm.
Yeah, brings a real sense of safety. And I'll add one more manganocalcite.
Mm.
It's a little pink calcite, and it's like a loving security blanket, really nurtures your inner child. And again, like a real heart stone.
Mm.
Yeah, lovely for any sort of emotional unrest or
Oh,
distress.
yeah. I
Thank
like
you.
that.
Thank you.
I think
Yeah.
I'm going to fill my toddler's pockets with lepidolite, I think.
Oh my gosh. Yes, it's the best.
Yes, I love the sound of that. I love crystals. My oldest son, he can like feel crystals, like feel what they do to his body, and I don't feel it like that. Like I have to sort of like talk myself through it and then I can
Right.
bring myself there, but he ever since like yeah, he was I asked just asked him like, "Can you still feel crystals?" Because when he was a really little
Yeah.
boy, he used to like one in like a little cage on his neck and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, mommy, I can just feel it like it's coming around me and I just feel so peaceful. It's just like moving around me." Like,
I love
wow.
it.
Yeah.
You know, that generation, they are like, I want to say it's a new form of energetic currency. They are hardwired. We get a lot of little kids in the
Hmm.
shop, and it's fantastic. Like even there are these little ones that come in. Some of them are like preschool
Mm.
age as well, and they came with their parents, and they found $20 on the sidewalk. And I mean, when I was a kid, if I found $20, I'd probably go to the candy store. But
Yeah.
they were like, let's go to the crystal shop. And they
Yeah.
filled their pockets.
Yeah, he was like that. He and I
Yeah.
used to go to, I was a single mom for 11 years with him. So every year we'd go to Nelson together. I just love Nelson.
Oh,
And
amazing.
there's a beautiful crystal shop there and he would save up his money to buy himself crystals. And the other thing I remember he would spend it on, he had this like tiny little vial of lavender, like this beautiful lavender essential oil. Yeah,
Precious.
I know, he was like
Oh,
such a cute little guy. Now he's a big
oh,
guy, but still cute.
yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been such a treat. Thank you
So
so much, Melissa.
lovely. Thank you for sharing. Thanks so much for listening. You can connect with Leslie Ann by visiting her at Amethyst Creations in Kitsilano, where you can shop for all those beautiful crystals she told us about. You can also connect with her on social media, and you'll find those details in the show notes. New episodes of Through the Veil come out every Tuesday. You can subscribe and share, write us a fabulous review on whatever platform you listen on. That is how we get the story out there so that we can have more powerful, peaceful births. Until next time.